City of Evans for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Our first item on the agenda is the auditor's presentation of the 2024 financial audit. We'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Council. We're joined tonight by Abby Irvine from Haney and Company to give you an overview of the audit process and some results, and then should have opportunity for questions, some time built into our schedule as well. With that, I'll let Abby take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, thanks everyone. My name is Abby Irvine with Haney and Company CPAs. We performed the financial statement audit this year for the city. Just here to go over results. Just a quick agenda. I'll cover who the folks from Haney who are involved in the audit this year. Go through a quick summary of audit procedures. Talk about some of the highlights from the report. I'm not going to go through the whole report in detail. You have a copy of it, but certainly I'll answer any questions if there are any. We'll go through our required communications that we will be providing in form of a letter at the conclusion of the audit. I'll go through audit adjustments, that's what corrected misstatements are, and then talk about upcoming GASB pronouncements. So just a reminder, the engagement team, again, my name's Abby Irvine with Haney and Company CPAs. I was the audit manager this year for the audit. This is our 5th year working on the audit for the city. Christine McLeod unfortunately cannot be here today. We actually have firm-wide training in Salt Lake, which is where our corporate office is, and so they're all there, and I stayed back to give this presentation today. So just a kind of a quick summary overview of the audit process. And so it really starts, we start performing planning in November, December every year. We do come out and visit the city, usually in that time frame, just to kind of get an idea of what transactions have occurred during the year. Just got to get an update from staff on what we should be planning for as we get ready to perform the audit. Part of our responsibilities are to obtain an understanding of how the city operates, kind of who does what, obtain an understanding, very high level of internal control, processes, procedures, any changes like I mentioned. From there, we'll develop our audit approach. And so we do take a risk-based approach to performing audits. And so what that means is we're looking at areas that could be at risk of misstatements. So ultimately what we're looking for is to make sure that the financial statements are fairly stated. And so we're looking at areas that could be subject to potential errors or miscalculation, complex areas, because we're looking just to make sure that everything is accurately recorded so that we're able to offer an audit opinion over the financial statements. And ultimately that's what we're here today to talk about, the audit and the audit opinion. That's what we provide at the conclusion of our procedures. From there, we'll perform audit fieldwork. That involves digging into transactions, again, on a risk-based kind of basis. And so we perform sampling. We do not look at all transactions, but certainly do look at quite a few. We provide requests to staff, and they do a great job getting us everything that we need. Certainly it's a very heavy lift to get through to the end of the day that we're here today. There's a lot that we go through to be able to get here, so definitely want to thank them and their efforts, and just answering our questions and pulling documents for us to look at. We were here in March, I believe, for our on-site field work. And then reporting is the last stage, and so you've got a copy of the audit report, which includes the audit opinion. There's also a copy of the SEFA, or the Schedule of Federal Expenditures. That's a report that summarizes federal grant expenditures that the city's required to have what's known as a single audit. So not only do we do a financial statement audit, but we do a single audit as well over federal grant expenditures, and that's required when you expend more than $750,000 in a year under federal grants. Now that's increasing next year to $1 million. So it's possible the city's had a single audit for every year that almost every year that we've been the auditor. I think there was 1 year where you didn't, but that threshold does increase next year. So it's possible that you may fall below the threshold, but certainly it's not increasing substantially. But with federal grants and kind of some of the uncertainty with those. I guess this is something to watch for next year to see if you're over the threshold with the increased dollar threshold. Regarding engagement status, so you all have a copy of the draft audit report. It's a draft right now. Assuming the draft is accepted, we can move it into final status. We'll issue a management representation letter, have that signed by the city, and then we'll be able to issue a final report, which is then filed with the state of Colorado. You're required to file that audit with the state by July 31st every single year. So certainly we're well ahead of the time frame to be able to finalize this and get it filed. So we will be issuing a clean or an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the city. That opinion covers all the funds, all the enterprise funds, the governmental funds. We will also be issuing a clean or unmodified opinion related to the single audit. And so single audit focuses on internal control and compliance over federal grant administration. So that also will have a clean opinion as well. And then just a note that we are required to file standards in order, to do what we do. And so our audits performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. We have to follow those with regard to the single audit. So our goal is to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance over whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. So again, we're just looking to make sure everything looks like it's materially correct in order for us to issue our opinion. So just a few highlights. So the report itself includes several sets of financial statements. The first couple of sets is the government-wide statement of net position, the government-wide statement of activities. So this essentially summarizes all of the activity of the city as a whole. So it's going to report all the assets, liabilities, deferrals, net position, revenues, expenditures for the city, both from an enterprise standpoint and governmental funds. So these are on full accrual basis. And so that just means that's very similar to how private sector businesses report, but it's different than the governmental fund statements, which are also found within the report. And then revenues, those are categorized by type. Expenses are organized by function or by department. The next set of statements that are included in the report are the fund statements, and so you've got a balance sheet, and then the statement of revenue, expenditures, changes in fund balances. So this essentially focuses more on the fund activity for the year, and so again, reporting all the assets, liabilities, deferrals, fund balances, revenues, expenditures, just focusing more on the funds. So the accounting basis for these are a little bit different. They're on modified accrual. So and what that means is that there's a current resources focus on these. And so this aligns more with how you budget. They don't include items such as your long-term assets, your capital assets. It does not include your long-term liabilities. Again, it's more of a current resources focus. And so that's the reason that you have different sets of financial statements in the report, is that they just have different measurements of accounting and different focuses. This also does include the Evans Redevelopment Agency, so that's presented as a fund of the town. That is a separate entity, but meets the accounting definition to be included as one of the funds in those statements. Next, there is the report's laid out similar to how this is outlined. So there's a management discussion and analysis. That's a summary written by staff regarding the year, and I would encourage everyone to read that. That really focuses on what happened during the year, breaks it down into a very easily readable format to kind of understand the various statements. And then activity during the year and what happened. The accounting policies are described in Note 1. Those essentially just go into a little bit more detail on the accounting behind various items that are going to be found in both those government-wide and fund financial statements. accounting focus, very standard. Just kind of give a little bit more detail into those numbers. There is a summary of capital asset activities start in note 4, a summary of debt activity or long-term liability in note 5. And then every fund that has an adopted budget, there is a budget to actual schedule within the report for each fund of the city. There were 2 funds this year, the Fire Impact and School Impact Funds. So the expenditures exceeded the budget, but they had enough revenue to be able to have those expenditures. I think those essentially net to zero. So what gets, they're almost like pass-throughs. What gets collected gets transferred out. But we're required to just report whenever there's expenditures that exceed budget. There's just a sentence in the report regarding that. So just wanted to point that out here. And then the last couple of pages in the audit go over the single audit. So the the single audit this year was related to the ARPA funds. This is the last year that those will be reported, and so they've all been spent. And so they did, again, this relates to federal grant expenditures that exceed $750,000, and so that was the major federal grant this year. And so that was the only program that we were required to audit. And it's, again, just a deep dive outlining how cities expend federal money and just making sure that they're following all the rules that are tied to those funds. And we do, so in audit, we do not audit internal control. In a financial statement audit, we do look at internal control from a high level, but related to federal grants, we do dig into the internal controls related to federal grant administration. And so there were no findings that we have to report on that, but just want to kind of point out the differences between the two. Next, we'll go through the required audit communications. Again, this will be a letter that we issue at the conclusion when we finalize the report. So there was a new accounting standard this year. We call it GASB 101. It covers compensated absences. So the city's always been required to report a liability related to employee leave. Essentially, in the past, the way that that's been calculated is any sort of employee leave that vests or that gets paid out upon termination would be considered as a liability. And what changed in the standard is now they're looking at it a little bit more holistically and saying any kind of leave that municipalities provide to their employees, if it's earned and it rolls over or it accrues, you have to consider it for a liability. So that would be not only vacation time that accrues that's paid out, but also paid time off or sick time, any sorts of time like that. If it's earned, rolls over, you need to consider it for consideration in that liability. So we went through a discussion on what that would look like implementing that standard for the city. There was an additional liability that was included this year. It's around $308,000 additional liability related to the earned health leave that wasn't previously accrued. So that will be accrued going forward. So that's essentially an estimate of the time that's been earned by city employees that's expected to be used in the future. So went through a historical kind of analysis to look at the time that's been accrued versus what was taken over a period of time to come up with that estimate. I believe it was around 30% of the number of hours that were accrued that went into that calculation. So that is new. We'll see that going forward as part of that calculation of that liability. So as part of, accounting and auditing, we're looking at accounting estimates. So there's certain elements of the financial statements that are subject to estimate. And so the ones that are a little bit more significant as it pertains to the city would be depreciation, the measurement of the pension liability. Again, you participate in FPPA, and so you do get an estimate of what that liability is supposed to be every single year from FPPA. And then the estimated health leave accrual, as I just mentioned, that's another significant estimate that we look at. So as far as estimates, because those just require a little bit more judgment, we look at those just to make sure they're reasonable and they're reasonable and consistent and that they make sense, just because there's a little bit more judgment that goes into measuring those. There were no disagreements as we went through the audit. Everyone always does a great job answering our questions, makes themselves available, and gets us everything that we need in a timely manner so that we can be here today. So the audit went really, really smooth. No difficulties as we were going through the audit this year. I've mentioned, so part of the finalization process is that we'll obtain a management representation letter that will allow us to finalize the audit, and then we can issue with the state of Colorado. And then just a couple of points regarding the audit opinion. So there's some required supplemental information within the report that pertains to pension disclosure and management discussion and analysis. So we do not offer an opinion. Our opinion doesn't cover that essentially, but we do review it, make sure it all kind of agrees internally, ties out to numbers within the report so that it makes sense. There's other supplementary information, so that's going to be items like combining schedules for non-major funds. That's just where you add up all the fund activity. And then budget schedules for certain funds. Again, so we offer, our opinion isn't in relation to opinion, so we look at that in relation to the financial statements as a whole and make sure that they're fairly stated. We're agreeing those schedules to other data within the report just to make sure everything agrees, ties out, and that is supported by documents. I did want to point out that there was a FPPA plan merger this year. So there was two plans with FPPA. This is related to the pension. And so there was the statewide hybrid plan, the statewide retirement plan, those merged. And so now you have you had a large portion of the old plan. You have a smaller portion of the new combined plan because you were in the statewide hybrid plan previously. And now you're in the combined plan. So as a result of that plan merger, which you really have no control over, that was all at the FPPA level, and you're just required to report your portion of the liability on your books. There was a $500,000 adjustment through pension, basically pension expense this year. Just a little bit larger adjustment, and since that was unusual, I just wanted to point that out. And then as far as any sort of, so we have no formal audit findings. Everything was in good order. No significant matters to report. Just a couple of more so recommendations. Making sure the capital asset schedule is complete to include some items that are disposed, and adding the, so last year there was a new accounting standard that required you to include subscription-based IT arrangements, basically to capitalize those instead of expensing them if they met the definition to be capitalized. So just including those on the schedule because they're now required to be included there going forward. Related to the compensated absences standard, the standard requires municipalities to include salary-related payments in there. That's essentially payroll taxes and your match for a 401k plan. And so just considering including the defined benefit contribution within that amount in the future, within that accrual in the future. Again, we looked at it. It was materially correct this year, but that's something that you can include in the calculation per the guidance. So just something to look at in the future. And then every year, we always look at the developer and escrow payables, talk with them, talk about those schedules with staff. Those are amounts that are just collected and retained until projects are completed and closed out, and just continuing to review those every year, make sure those schedules don't become stagnant. So it's something that we do look at, and just we've talked with staff and feel confident that the schedules are correct, but just continuing to have your eyes on them to get dollars released when it's the right time to do so. Corrected misstatements. So this is essentially just going over audit adjustments. So we had a couple recommendations to update the subscription-based IT arrangement calculation. Again, that was a new standard that was put into place last year. So still just refining and getting those numbers, looking at those calculations and making sure they're correct. We just had a couple of corrections, but again, thought that the schedule that was provided to us was materially correct. Just wanted to mention that we had a couple changes to that calculation. So gas reporting, this covers government auditing standards. Again, this is just covering the single audit. So I've touched on this, but if we do look at internal control, we look at compliance related to those federal grants as part of our single audit related to those ARPA funds. No findings to report. It was a clean report again this year. If there were any internal control issues such as material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, we would be required to report those. We had none of those to report. And then just a reminder that this is the final year for the ARPA funds. Finally, upcoming GASB announcements, and so there's 3 new standards that are coming down. They're not super significant, not like we've had in the last couple of years where we've had to look at capitalizing leases and capitalizing software arrangements and the new compensated absence standards. So one is just a risk disclosure. So considering when there's certain risks that the government may be subject to, expanding upon that within the disclosures. That goes into effect this next year. In a couple of years, there's some recommendations to the financial reporting model. So again, that's kind of what goes into your report that you see here today. It's just expanded language regarding management discussion and analysis, the way certain schedules are prepared. I'd say the big change that I've noticed is in the budget schedules that are presented in the report. They would like to have some language included there as to why certain things are there's variances related to the budget, and so moving that out of your management discussion and analysis section of the report and moving that to the budget schedule so it's all together. That's one big change that I've noticed. This is going into effect in a couple of years. I don't think there's anything super significant that you need to worry about, but there'll be more guidance and trainings coming out, and certainly we'll keep staff informed as we're informed on any sort of changes that are coming. And then just expanded capital asset disclosure. Again, I think that's coming out in a few years. With that, that was all I wanted to cover today regarding the audit. Certainly happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No question. No. I just want to make a comment. Again, clean audit, great year as always. You and your staff do a absolutely phenomenal job at this, and you've done this for us for 5 years, and I don't think in the 5 years that they've done the audit we've had any issues and everything like that. So kudos to you and your team. You guys are awesome. So I really appreciate it.
I have a question. Hi, considering that you did our audit for our city for the previous year, do you feel that there is any specific department that has a liability for future, especially when it comes to it being in a deficit, and since you did an overall throughout the city?
Any department that has a liability, meaning?
Well, that is at risk of being in a deficit. So, for example, based off, because you did a lot of line items. So, do you feel that any given department may be a liability or a risk to our general fund?
So I would say from an audit standpoint, we're looking more at individual funds rather than individual departments. And so it is broken out.
Let me correct myself. Individual funds.
So off the top of my head, no. And I would say, to kind of look at that more deeply, I would look at the fund balance for each one of those funds. So positive fund balance or positive net position, which the city has overall, for any sort of fund means that you have resources available that are for the future. And so as you take in revenue and spend, if that positive means that you've brought in more than you've spent, and so you're increasing that fund balance every single year. I do not believe, and again, I don't know it off the top of my head, I could look at the audit report, but I don't think that there's any fund of the city that's in a negative position. And Jackie's confirming that. So she knows the numbers really, really well. So certainly I would look at that. It's the city reported a strong fund balance and net position as of the end of the year, which is something that we always look for. And there's also there's portions of net position that are restricted. So they're either restricted contractually, they're restricted legally. And so even that portion and your investment in capital assets, those aren't really available to you. Those are tied up in your capital assets. So there's a portion of your net position that's unrestricted. So there's no legal restrictions, there's no contractual restrictions, and that's very healthy as well and growing.
Oh, perfect. Good to hear. And through like your notes or in your opinion, do you feel that we need to be proactive soon about any of those, considering they're healthy?
We don't generally look at that, but from an audit standpoint of where the numbers were, there was nothing that concerned us.
Perfect. Thank you.
It is nice to have an outside set of eyes on an already efficient system that really kind of shows the whole point of an audit is to have an outside entity look at the books and making sure there aren't any discrepancies or anything that isn't adding up correctly. So I do value your time for doing that. And it really shows that our team is running the books correctly as they should be. And so having an anti-climatical audit is what we always want to have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me. For the benefit of our constituents, would you define disposed intangibles and SBITAs?
Yes. Disposed, so this was one of our audit recommendations, and really, the books are correct. It's just supplementary schedules that agree into the books where, we are recommending just to make sure that those agree, especially, this is our, final year as the auditors, our final year of the contract, and so if there's a new audit firm, it just kind of makes it, cleaner to be able to have schedules that agree to the trial balance. So a disposed intangible is something that I believe this was water rights. And so those are just classified as an intangible asset versus a tangible asset like a building or a piece of equipment. And then SBITA, we love acronyms in accounting and auditing. So that's SPITA, that's the subscription-based IT arrangements that I was mentioning. So those are, if they meet the definition to be capitalized, they're required to be included on your capital asset schedule going forward, as of last year and going forward.
Thank you.
I will say though that the books they are correct, and so it was just a recommendation to make sure underlying schedules include those items.
Well, gotta keep up with the changes.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot, and they get more confusing every year.
Yeah, they do.
More complex.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time again.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Again, thank you, Jackie, and to you and your staff as well. Great job.
Thanks.
All right, I understand that it was the planning commission interview or the water and sewer board that was not making it.
The first planning commission interviewee should be here.
Okay.
I haven't seen her yet, but the second interviewee has canceled.
Okay. All right, we'll take a couple minute break until they show up.
Serious. What?
if you'd like to take a seat up there, we'll go around and we'll introduce ourselves and we'll get started. There are 5 questions. There's 6 of us. So I will just do the introduction and then I will just go around the room and they'll each ask one of the 5 questions that we have. And Fred, you'll ask question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sound good? All right. Well, thank you very much for your interest in being part of the Planning Commission. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Mark Clark. I'm the mayor. And we are looking forward to just doing this interview. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Councilmember Neal, and he will ask the first question if you're ready. All right.
Briefly tell us a little about yourself and why you are interested in being on the planning commission.
I've been a stay-at-home mom for about 40 years.
Can you hit
there you
hit the button at the
I
bottom?
can get that
please?
for you. There you go.
Yep, there you go.
Okay,
Might want to get it closer to you.
okay. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, and I moved to Evans in 2013 with my family. And since then, we have enjoyed all the experiences here, such as the library and the activities that it offers, the Riverside Park, and just watching the community grow and thrive. And that has allowed us to have connections within our family. And through that, I've been able to be, as I've said, being a stay-at-home mom and further my education. And the city made that very accessible for our family. And through my college education, I feel I've developed skills that I could now contribute more value to the community. And so when I actually went to the website to do volunteering with the kids' sports again, and I saw this opportunity, and I'm getting a master's degree in organizational leadership, and I just felt the skills that I've developed could coincide with the planning.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson?
Number 3.
2.
Number 2.
I'm number 2. Oh, gotcha. I was going in order, sorry. Have you ever served on a board or a commission? If so, please tell us about your experience. If not, have you ever attended or participated in public hearings?
I have never been on a board, and when I have had time available, we've come to a city council meeting, and when it was when they took out the pool, which was a big disappointment because we lived a block from the pool, we'd partake in the voting of what would go there next, and that was really a fun event. And also just other things, would be like the scavenger hunt, that really, I think those are good things for children and families to go around and interact in the city and learn more about, so that was important too.
Hi, Jeff Crabtree, Ward 2. In your own words, tell us what land use planning means to you and how it relates to the development in the city.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure. In your own words, tell us what land use planning means to you and how it relates to development in the city.
Well, I've actually just started, since this application, studying urban planning, and from the little bit I've learned would be the zoning and stuff is about guidelines to delegate the land use and make sure, like, say the mixed combo or the residential, industrial, don't mix, and if they do, it doesn't cause disruptions.
Okay, Chris Delaney, Ward 3. Tell me, how would you handle a situation when you're presented with conflicting information or opposing opinions?
I think I actually do very well in that. Before work, I also handle the acquisition, so I know what kind of high stress can bring. But I feel like I'm a very good mediator, pulling people aside, gathering the information, and hearing their concerns, and then tying that all back together to lead you to the, what's the long-term goal that we're after, and how can we all reach that together?
Thank you.
There, Kyle Fair, I'm Ward 1. How do you envision the city of Evans evolving over the next decade?
That is a very good question. I have been, like I said, studying urban planning, and I was just thoroughly impressed with Evans, and looks like it's thriving towards growing towards being a smart city. I never saw, like, I went and kind of looked at the maps and saw that you guys are planning for growth, and I think that's just really neat because as a citizen, Evans has actually, like, fostered my growth as an individual. And so, cities do create and shape who you are, and I just want to give back and provide, value to my community that they could give to me.
Great, thank you. Well, that concludes the interview. Do you have any questions for us as a council that we may be able to?
Well, I was just curious, as the alternate, would it still be you having them come and participate and, just holding back and listening, so that way if there is the need for you, that like I would be having all the knowledge that I would need to help?
Absolutely, yeah. You would expect it there. You'd just be a non-voting member, but yes, if in the need that somebody stepped aside, you'd have the knowledge, you'd step right in and
Okay.
and fill that role. Absolutely, for sure.
That's all the questions I had.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll have a discussion as a council, and you'll be hearing probably back from me tomorrow. We'll let you know our decision.
Well, thank you for interviewing me and giving me
Thank you.
time.
Pretty
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Was that? So, the water and sewer board individual, do you think he can come early? All right, well, the other interview that we had for the planning commission, she won't be here, so, any discussion on her? Do you have any issue with? Well, there was two, the other one decided not to come and participate in the interview, so she's the only one. The other one's for the water and sewer board, yeah.
Well, considering she was here present
Mm-hmm.
and available, I'm for her.
Anybody have any concern? Yeah, I didn't either. Okay, sounds good. All right, I will let her know. Give her a call tomorrow, let her know. Thanks. And what time did we have that one originally scheduled for? Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, even better. Perfect. Welcome. There we go. All right. Hi, Marcus. I'm Mark Clark. Nice to meet you, sir. If you're ready, have a seat right there.
Sorry, I didn't know where to go.
That's okay. No problem. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
You are applying for the Water and Sewer Board, which we have a vacancy on. We have 5 questions to ask. We're going to just start with Councilmember Neal, and then we're going to go this way. And at the end, I'm just going to ask you if you have any questions for us. I would really appreciate your time being here. So, Councilmember Neal, question number 1 is yours.
Briefly tell us a little about yourself and why you are interested in being on the Water and Sewer Board.
My name is Marcus Nera. I've lived in Greeley, Colorado, Evans area my entire life, which is 55 years. I am a plumber. I have been a plumber for since I was 9. So it's what I've grown up around. It's everything I've done my whole life. I do own a business here in Evans. It's Plumbing Solutions. And I would feel like I would be a great asset to Evans in general.
Have you ever served on a board or a commission? If so, please tell us about your experience. If not, have you ever attended or participated in public hearings?
I have not. This is my first go around. No, I can't say that I have. I have not, to be honest. I would like to. I think it would be a great experience.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Jeff Crabtree, Ward 2. In your own words, describe what the role for Water and Sewer Board should play in relation to city utilities.
Well, that's a pretty deep subject. There's a lot of areas. We have a lot of things in the city of Evans, honestly, that are being overlooked, that are not being looked at. that I feel like myself as a plumber, we can notify our citizens, our board, or whoever it may be, the powers that be. This should be looked at and being taken care of.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chris Delaney, Ward 3. How would you handle a situation when you're presented with conflicting information or opposing opinions?
There's several ways. You can have a meeting. We can sit down, talk about it, discuss it, see the best alternative for the entire subject. At that point, we can, if it's a job that's being handled, we could put stop work order. We could, again, discuss it with the powers to be.
Thank you.
There, Kyle Fair, Ward 1. How do you envision the city of Evans evolving over the next decade?
As fast as we're growing, I can see it growing pretty quick. It's going to evolve. I think we need more people involved. I feel like more of the citizens need to be involved in the whole entire situation. There are not very many people that want to step up and actually be part of this situation. We're growing west. Greeley's growing, west. We haven't done anything out east too much. There's a lot of things that need to be done, looked at. There's a lot of things overseen that should be seen, but being evolved, I think that we're going to get a lot bigger.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That was all the questions I had for the interview. Do you actually have any questions for us that we might be able to answer for you?
Actually, to be quite honest, I think that each and every one of you have done a great job, and I think that there should be more put into what's being done. I want to know how you guys feel about individuals like myself being involved in things like this. How do we help them step up?
Can I?
It's a great
Great question.
yeah.
I wish I had the answer.
So the first thing is doing what you're doing, and I think you're correct. When it comes to the city, it's a collaboration amongst everyone. Everyone needs to have a pulse on what's happening, and when we have our citizens, our residents that are involved, we get a perspective that we don't get normally, and we always want it. We always request it. We try many various ways to get engagement. But the thing is, when we lack that perspective, it hurts the city because we don't have your ideas, your suggestions, your feedback, the people that live here. And we can come up with a plan, but if we don't have more input about it, it can't be the best plan for everyone because there's no one to also engage and state that maybe there should be a change, or maybe I like it, but this can be updated. And so the more involvement that we have from our community, the better we are. So thank you. And so again, it's hopefully, if you have ideas or suggestions on how we can engage more people, please let us know because we're always wanting to do that. And thank you for doing it.
Absolutely. Just one other question really quick. So you're stating that we need to get our community involved. There's a lot of hardworking individuals out here that do actually work every single day, and they do work from 7. Myself, I'm speaking for myself, pardon me. I work from 7 to 7. That's pretty much my day. I try to input and let people know that, this is the kind of thing that we need to step up and help the community. What are your ideas? What do you think is actually going to happen to have individuals that are hardworking involve themselves with our community to make it bigger and better, to give the suggestions? Is there a questionnaire that's output? Is there anything that, that we can actually do? Is there an incentive for them to be involved in our community?
So, great question. If an individual can't be on a board, town halls are another way to really voice and deliver that message, or even just an email to a person in your ward or even the mayor. Those are great ways because I totally understand long days, hard work.
And there are a lot of individuals in our community that don't have internet. There are people out there that don't have the resources that you or myself have. Is there a way that we can get to them to have them step in and help out and understand what we're trying to achieve in this whole entire thing.
I think at town hall is the best way to first start that introduction, because we're just, as you said, we need that input and we need that feedback, and we're extremely flexible to get that data. So, yes.
I try to usually hold a town hall meeting once a quarter, usually in the evening. We try to advertise it. I know not everybody has social media or has the internet, but we do try to post that on our message boards and put community notifications here at the city hall and everything to get that out as much as we can. We are always looking ways to improve our communication, but at our last town hall meeting that I had a couple weeks ago, largest turnout ever. I think people are starting to understand and what some people want to engage. I think we had over 25 people that showed at town hall. Usually before it would only be 3 or 4, and it was always the same people. So I'm trying to do things like in the evening where, and I know I'm not going to be able to accommodate everybody's schedule, but try to at least find some common ground where it's not too late for everybody, but not too early as well. So I usually try to do mine at like 6. But we're always looking for ways to improve, and any suggestions you have would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we also do mailers like through like the water bill and stuff like that. But I think yes, I agree with you that it's always evolving. We always can improve in many areas. But again, feedback is what we need, and we need to know that, because I can say something, and it might be my perspective. Like, well, but are people telling you that? Like you just mentioned, there's a lot of people that don't have internet. That needs to be known. Because unless people come and say that, no one's going to understand that. I can yell from the rooftops, but then it looks like my perspective. I'm being political. I'm only honing in on one population and one demographic. So I need also, not just me, but everyone needs the support to also say, hey, there's these people we're not capturing. And so again, you stating that, you bringing that up, or more people coming forward to say those kind of things helps us. Because again, I have lived experience, but not everyone has my lived experience. He has a different lived experience. Everyone has their own lived experience. And so we bring that to the table, but we need others, and so coming here and bringing that helps us.
Chris? Member Delaney, did you have, no?
I just want to say, I think you're absolutely right that, participation with the city is difficult. This last election, 3 of us ran unopposed, and I would have loved to seen someone run against me. I hope that I'm representing our ward to the best of what everyone would desire of that. But yeah, grateful that you're here and applying, and hope you know someone else to bring to the board.
Appreciate it.
Great. Well,
When I first got on city council, they asked me if I wanted business cards, and I said I will take business cards only if I can put my home address and my telephone number on there. And I've had people call me at midnight to complain about various things going on in the city. And I also am more than willing, and have done so in all 3 wards in the past, gone door to door and talked to people. And it's very time consuming, and it can be very frustrating, but you find out what people are concerned about that way. And that's, to me, that's the only way you can get some input from people, because the only time they ever come is when they got something that they think is going to affect their wallet, in my opinion, because that's when they show up at city council meetings or at some of the open houses that we have, and things like when we're trying to get input for parks. We had a lot of people come from Arrowhead for Delaney Park and the open space there in front of Arrowhead Lake.
I personally think that that's a lot of people not wanting to get involved is because they think that they owe something. That's just my insight. Being a plumber and going from house to house to house to house, I hear a lot of that. They actually, they don't, well, we show up and this is what we got, they want to take my money, they want to do this, they want to do that. I hear a lot of that. So they don't have the education that you or I have. Not that I'm very smart when it comes to politics, because I'm not, and I don't claim to be, but I have a pretty good understanding of common sense. And there's a lot of individuals, not saying that they're beneath me or above me, but they don't understand the concept behind of trying to make a better community, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
And I think these past two councils have done a fantastic job on bringing a lot of visibility to Evans, because Evans is seen as like the bedroom community to Greeley. Sometimes honestly I encounter people like, oh, what, like Evans, like they think we're Greeley, like literally, like we're some, like, I don't know, like the brother of Greeley or sister of Greeley, and they don't realize that we have a police station, a department. They don't realize that we actually have our own money to take care of our city. Like they don't know that, and so I do agree with the educational component. To really, provide more information and more visibility. Granted, as I mentioned, these past two councils have done a great job, but there's so much work that needs to be done, and we're trying our hardest to do that. But again, we need everyone's help.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you.
I agree with you.
Well, great. Thank you very much for your time. Really
Thank you.
Just your mic's off.
Again, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Microsoft. Appreciate your time. Again, anybody have any questions, concerns, anything like that? He is the only applicant for it. I think he's got a lot. Well, I'm not going to call you. I'm just going to formally say, welcome to the Water and Sewer Board.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. All right, absolutely.
And we're excited for that engagement that you're bringing.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
All right,
evening.
you too. Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. Well, that's it for our work session. We have